Okay, good morning. I was making a joke back home to my students this morning saying if I tripped on stage and this talk was a complete mess, they'd make me give back all the wonderful food I've been eating all week. I think I've been seconded to this hotel since Monday night when I arrived. I've been outside 2 times. That's it. I haven't seen the sun for a couple of days. So immediately after this talk, you can find me outside. Melinda just introduced my title, but she missed an important piece for the sake of brevity. She said we can't fit all that in the program. So I put it back in. Stretching the edges of technology-enhanced teaching or training if you're in the corporate sector. We have to stretch our minds a bit and think about what's available at the corners of the edges, what's possible today for all of us. For some of us, we take a small cord like this and stretch it out, and that becomes our model, our framework for thinking about technology integration. In a way, we just dabble with things along the edges that's out there. Some of us take and have something a bit larger in scope and nature, and we stretch that out about as far as we can go, or we hang our spouse up if we get mad at them. Others of us take a giant piece of rope and stretch it as far as you can go and unwind this cord from the front of the room to the back of the room and put all the different technology innovations along the continuum from low risk, low cost, low time to high risk, high cost, high time activities. And indeed, there are thousands of things we can do today with technology integration. There are so many that it becomes a bit frustrating for almost all of us to keep track of what indeed is possible today. How many of you open up your newsletters from your university or school and get frustrated by your deans like Melinda who say, you should be thinking about using this technology, right? Why don't you think about incorporating this into your classroom somewhere? And the next day you get yet another email from someone, you should think about this idea and that idea. And then the next one comes up and you're just still thinking about the first one. I know I get frustrated all the time thinking about what's available for me to use in my classrooms. How many of you get frustrated? The lady right there, she's a bit frustrated. Have my smiley face. There you go. Pass it back to her. Anyone else feel a little sense of frustration? I think that lady right there in the first green chair. There you go. Almost. How about the back of the room? Throw it back. Throw it back. The lady back there. That smiley face maybe can get you through some of those frustrations that you're feeling every day. I feel them with you. I feel your pain. So today I'm going to go through a couple of frameworks with you. I'll briefly repeat a couple of things I talked about on Tuesday and Wednesday. So at the University of Vegas on Tuesday and Wednesday we did the pre-conference workshop here. So I'll briefly allude to those 2 frameworks. I'll start with a different one and end with a different one. So I'll give you a couple of frameworks or ways of making sense of what's out there today. I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you to the edge. That's what this talk is about, stretching the edges. From tinkering, blended learning, to tottering, almost transforming your classes, to totally extreme learning. Now, totally extreme learning today in 2012 might not be considered extreme at all in 2015 or 16. So while I'm going to show you some things here today that you say, Dr. Bonk, I could never do in my classroom here in Manila, or in Indonesia, or wherever you happen to be coming from. Indeed, in 5 years, you're going to look at this talk and say, Dr. Bonk was way too conservative. Okay? So let's walk through some things, and if you miss anything, all these slides are posted at trainingshare.com, because you have to believe in the power of sharing today. So all 8 talks I'm doing in the Philippines are at trainingshare.com. All my papers that are open access are at publicationshare.com. Again, you have to believe in the power of sharing. What will you share with me? Think about that.
Sharing changes the world. Open educational resources are changing the world. Today, the deans and presidents of the Big Ten universities, which Indiana is part of, had an announcement about how to promote open educational resources, open education, and recognize professors and instructors who are doing so. Now, stretching the edges of technology-enhanced teaching, tinkering, tottering, totally extreme learning. I'm happy. Some of you got your smiley faces. You're happy too, right? I'm happy about the state of things today. So many things have changed over the past decade. People aren't throwing tomatoes at me anymore. By this point in most talks, people would be throwing tomatoes. We've moved along a continuum. First becomes awareness. Then, lo and behold, becomes resistance. We become aware of what's possible, then we resist it. And we resist it as long as we can. That resistance phase has ended. We are now moving into understanding how to use technologies, e-learning, open educational resources, and we're moving into using it, understanding and use. Later, we'll be moving into the sharing phase, becoming an advocate phase. We'll be moving into phases 5 and 6 along that continuum. I'm happy with the state of things, yet every day I get reports, hundreds of them to read. I'm happy about what's possible today. There we go. My dog's happy because he in turn gets a degree online, as you can see. Okay? There's new delivery mechanisms for our technologies. Many new delivery mechanisms available to us at any point in time. Ewha Women's University in Seoul, Korea, opening up the world to learning. One of the top places in the world for educational technology and training. Ewha Women's University, when I went there in 2002, my friend Mu Young thanked me for a half hour. He thanked me, and we were stuck in traffic in Seoul for yet another 2 hours. He's still thanking me. I said, "Why are you thanking me?" He says, "I get to take you to Ewha Women's University. I couldn't get in otherwise." All the beautiful women. Well, I was in Ewha Women's University in September. As you go into the entryway, they're opening up learning for the world, and they told me, "Dr. Bonk, keep going. We don't want you here." So I left Ewha Women's University, and I walked across the street to Yonsei University. And every library at Yonsei University represented a different type of learning. On the first floor was social learning. On the second floor was counseling and mentoring. On the third floor was group-based learning. On the fourth floor was individual reflection and activities. Here we are on the first floor. There they are on the third floor. On the fourth floor. Every level of the building was a different type of learning. I think that e-learning, open educational resources have caused us to rethink face-to-face classrooms and libraries. As I travel around the world, I see buildings being built for active learning, informal learning groups, collaborative learning, modular units. Our spaces and places for learning are changing dramatically in front of our eyes. And as a result, people's lives are being changed with technology. How many of you have had your life change as a result of technology? Via learning. How many of you learned something you couldn't have learned otherwise, right? My life changed. I was a board accountant. And I was taking TV and correspondence courses at the University of Wisconsin outreach to get into graduate school at Madison. And then when I got there, I created TV courses on critical thinking and creative thinking at Madison. Technology changed my life. I wouldn't be here today if distance learning, in effect television and correspondence, hadn't existed for me in the mid-1980s and before.
Well, what if there is no tomorrow? There wasn't one today.
That's me back as an accountant in the early 1980s. Every day was Groundhog Day, the same thing over and over and over and over. How many of you are accountants? The accounting profession in the United States says, we're going to ban online learning because it's too boring. They had protest signs, it's too boring, but face-to-face is really boring, as I mentioned on Wednesday. But there I was, stuck. And what saved my life was innovation in technology and education. Someone thinking ahead about what's possible. And I was reading 15-odd journals every week. I was reading people like Elliot Soloway, who last month presented with me in Washington, D.C. He's a mobile learning advocate. Here's his picture back in 1985. Hasn't changed all that much. Elliot's still Elliot. If you ever get a chance to hear Elliot, he's one of the best speakers in education. As I was reading from Elliot and Howard Gardner, multiple intelligence guy, and Roger Schenck, artificial intelligence guy, and Edward Bandura, psychologist and social learning. I was also grabbing at distance learning books like this one, Learning at the Back Door by Charles Wiedemeyer. Charles Wiedemeyer is the first one who endorsed blended learning back in the 1950s and 60s. He taught the first courses on distance learning. Charles Wiedemeyer has the best book you can buy for $1. Don't buy my books. Buy his book for $1 used on Amazon. This kid here, Russian kid, can't get into school. It's an elitist school back 50, 100, 150 years ago. But today, that same student can learn from Stanford or Harvard or the Open U in the UK or Seoul National in Korea. Today, anyone can learn anything from anyone else at any time. See, it's not that we're learning and sneaking in through the back door. We can learn through the front door, the side door. All the doors are opening up to us. And my score on the college entrance examination, a 19, on the ACT exam, couldn't get me into a single university in the United States today. My score was so low. I couldn't get into Stanford or Harvard or Oxford, but today I can learn from all those professors whenever I want to. They're on the web for me for free. All MIT stuff is up for free. At MITx, I can even get a credential from MIT on the web. Charles Wiedemeyer, all E's in his name. He helped create the Open U in the UK. He taught with satellites. He taught with distance learning, taught with television. He used the technologies that were available to him at the time. We've moved on. Fast forward 25 years. And again, anyone can now learn anything from anyone else at any time. That was not necessarily the case in the early 1980s or even into the early 1990s. But today it is. 100-year-old people, centenarians, can be mentoring kids in schools. Young girls in the Philippine Islands can be asking questions of explorers in Antarctica, and they do. I've seen this happen, and I'll come back to that. Thomas Friedman, a few years ago, had a book called The World is Flat. Has anyone seen that book, The World is Flat? He lied to 7 million people who bought his book. The world's not flat. I haven't seen a flat world. Some people say the world's spiky. There's innovation centers in Seoul and in Paris and Seattle and San Francisco and Bangkok and here in Manila. Innovation centers. Some say the world is a bit curved. Others say the world's open. That's my take on it. The world's become open for learning. Thomas Friedman says we have new players, participants from Philippines, from Malaysia, from India, from Eastern Bloc countries of Europe. We have management processes that are flattened. People at Intel and IBM and Best Buy can make suggestions in a wiki or in a blog, and those suggestions can be operationalized. The hierarchies have come down. The cube farms have gone away that I worked in. Processes have become leveled through collaboration. People in the Philippines can collaborate with others in Malaysia and in Canada and around the world. Those are the 3 P's of the flat world. The 3 P's of the open world are piping. How many of you are checking email or Facebook right now? She's in the back row, he's in the back, and notice they're in the back oftentimes. They're the ones that admit to it, actually. Everyone's doing it. The piping's here, the infrastructure's here, pages, 52 trillion pages of content. We only need a few hundred to be good to change education. We don't need everything to be high quality. We need to find 100 good quality resources out there. And we have a participatory culture. We can contribute to the web, not just browse the web. Last week, my book, for those of you from Arab countries, my book came out in Arabic and last summer in Chinese. Just as a little aside, and soon maybe Russian, I don't know. In the book, we go through 10 trends that spell the acronym We All Learn. Web searching in the world of e-books, e-learning and blended learning, we. Open source software, free stuff. Melinda says say free 5 times and you get good evaluations. So free, 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 free. Available open source, leveraging our resources and open courseware from MIT. Learning object repositories and portals, we all. The last 5 get at what's exciting, and that's participating in learning, adding to learning in Wikipedia and YouTube. Electronic collaboration with my students today from my hotel room. Alternative reality learning and massive gaming. Real-time mobile learning and networks of personalized learning. We all learn. Simple acronym. If you think about this as one framework to reduce your frustration, that was the intent, to make sense of what's happening and provide one simple mnemonic, one simple framework to lay everything inside. And most things do fit in this framework still today. The book came out a couple of years ago. So I'm going to need some audience participation. The men are going to say we with me. So all men on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, we. And all the ladies will say all. 1, 2, 3, all. And together we'll say learn. 1, 2, 3, learn. So let's try this again. 1, 2, 3, we all learn. Let's try one more time. We all learn. Very trainable people here. It's good to see. Okay. As I travel around, and I've seen some places like Korea. I'm in Norway here with the Army, with the Norwegian naval admiral in the Navy. I'm in Saudi Arabia a couple of years ago. Everyone's greeting me like this, wherever I'm going. And I was in my home office, actually outside, and I was talking to Mike Morales' class from the International Grad School of Leadership here in the Philippines, and the students are greeting me like this. Everywhere I'm going since the book comes out. I was at the University of Batangas. You see everyone there greeting me like this. As you can see, even the president of Batangas is greeting me like this. I come to this conference, and even the waiters, the staff, are starting greeting me like this. And Mel, of course, and her crew, even the people we had coming in to perform, young 21-year-old teacher right here, she's right in the front, Melinda. Even have Catholic priests greeting me like this here in the Philippines. Wherever I'm going, they're greeting me, even last night at the performance and after drink hours and so forth. Even your senator who wants to be president's greeting me like this. And you know, they could have saved about 20 minutes earlier. I was going to take everyone's picture anyway, so everyone can go like this for me. Okay. We didn't need to come on stage. 1, 2, 3. Great. People on this side of the room. Let's try this again. 1, 2, 3. Great. And over here. 1, 2, 3. Great. Thank you very much. Could have saved you guys lots of time. Well, this is the open world. We got Open Yale with free contents. One of the highest quality contents. My team has been researching 300 websites that offer open access to education. We're looking at open educational resources as part of that quest. This is one of the highest quality sites we found was Open Yale. Now there's no instructor here, there's no grading of assignments yet. The Khan Academy, free math online. Bill Gates' favorite teacher is Salman Khan, offering chemistry and physics and math and accounting and you name it, it's at the Khan Academy. TED Talks, free videos on the web of famous people. And this used to be secretive. On Wednesday, I talked about video, remember? So, who was with me Wednesday? Okay, great. Talked about the TED Talks, technology, entertainment, design. And this guy here franchised it, made it free, so you can hear from Sugata Mitra, talk about the hole-in-the-wall technology in India, or granny cams, or other things. We've got Link TV, Television Without Borders. We've got National Geographic specials. We got specials on South Asia, on Latin America, all around the world, and Link TV, free. We've got Cisco Systems offering getideas.org from... We've got Cisco Systems offering getideas.org, having some of the best educators around the world reflect on what's happening in changing, transforming education, including my friend Okwa Lee at Handbook National in Korea, Charles Leadbeater from Cisco in the UK, Young Zhao from Oregon, and others. Free to the world, talking about changes. We've got Current TV, Al Gore's network, people posting news up and voting and ranking news. We've got John Bowermaster here, who's got his series Ocean's 8. In his series Ocean's 8, he goes to 7 oceans of the world, 8 oceans actually, by sea kayak. He goes to Antarctica, in fact, and other places, and blogs on it, films it, makes them available free in Link TV. We've got Earthducation, my friends at the University of Minnesota, Aaron Daring and Charlie Miller going around the world in Norway, in Africa, in Greenland, in Baffin Islands, and near the North Pole. They're going by snow sled, asking kids about local housing and jobs and other things, and wrapping curriculum around adventure learning. They're doing adventure learning for kids in schools from Earthducation and the Polar Husky Project. If you're a teacher, how many teachers do we have here? K-12. Check out Polar Husky and Earthducation. Link TV as well. Social change. We're looking at social change in global ed. We're looking at places where people can participate in learning and get their lives changed. EPALS projects, kids doing projects with other kids around the world. I-EARN, I-E-A-R-N. SOLIA, kids in the U.S. and college working with kids in the Middle East on projects. Global change and social ed. So we're looking at these 6 areas: adventure learning and environmental ed, virtual schools and virtual education. We're looking at shared online video, portals of learning, social change. We're trying to make sense of it all. I'm happy. My dog's happy. My dog's extremely happy about the state of things, but I'm not content. I think we can do better. I think we can do more, as was asked earlier yesterday about quality indicators, as what's been asked about assessment and plagiarism and copyright. We can do better. We're getting there. I'm happy, but I'm not content. My dog's happy. My cats are not. They're not too happy. Now, yesterday, or Tuesday, I should say, I provided a framework called the Tech Variety Model, where every letter stands for a motivational principle, and I went through different ways in which we can embed technology using this framework: feedback, encouragement, or tone, encouragement, curiosity, variety, autonomy, relevance, interactivity, engagement, tension-yielding products, tech variety. That's one way to think about designing courses, delivering courses, assessing courses for quality. Do they offer feedback? Do they have products? Do they have relevant activities? Does it have engagement? Tension, right? I went through my R2-D2 framework at the University of Batangas, as well as on Tuesday as well as Wednesday. Read, reflect, display, and do. And there was one woman Wednesday who won a book. What was your... Did she show up here today? Are you with us? Grace, where is she? Was she the one that won the book? Guess what I got? I'll sign it later. Thank you. Okay, give her a round of applause. I have one more book with me for the best question afterwards. My World is Open book. I also should point out I wrote a paper with this that's available. I brought one copy for the first one that comes up later. There is a paper that Melinda will make available on this talk. Okay. So we got the R2-D2 framework number 3. So you got We All Learn, you got Tech Variety, you got R2-D2. 4 things you can do online, 10 things you can do online. Ways to make sense of what's possible today. But I'm going to give you a 4th framework. Tinkering, tottering to totally extreme learning. I'm going to go through a set of examples rather quick in here so we can get to the next plenary session. But if monkeys can do this, certainly it's not that quick. You should be able to think about how you can embed technology in your own classrooms. So we're going to start with tinkering, blended learning. And I have the Handbook of Blended Learning we didn't quite get to on Wednesday, but the notes are up there at trainingshare.com. You can download those. Tinkering. So you might put cases on the web, scenarios on the web for students to reflect on, discuss, debate cases in accounting, cost accounting, or in pathology, reflecting on the cases from my friend Mark Braun at Indiana. You might stream your lectures. We're streaming this. This could be put up on the web for people who didn't make it. And by the way, hello to all the people later, okay? Thank you for joining us. Many keynotes today are streamed live. Many lectures today are streamed with Tegrity and MediaSite Live and Echo 360. We're putting things on the web for free. Tinkering with our instructions so we can flip our classrooms. We might put a timeline up. This timeline right down here is from the USA Today a couple weeks ago. After the Martin Luther King Memorial was put up, they made a timeline of his life that's interactive. Interactive timelines of Steve Jobs' life after he died. Interactive timelines of Bill Gates' life after he resigned. All free on the web for students to interact with. Tinkering with our classes, understanding something like civil rights movement, understanding fashion design, having it on a timeline, understanding history in a hyper-history timeline, understanding archaeology by looking at archaeological digs in Africa over time. video animations, understanding things like embryology through animation sequences, understanding how proteins unfold. And in fact, there are people solving AIDS and understanding things like Alzheimer's through the folded animation simulation free on the web from Stanford. Actually, teams looking at the using the folded tool. Collaborative groups having Google Documents or wiki spaces for team collaboration, or Ning, N-I-N-G, the same guy who built Netscape brought us Ning. Mark Andreessen has over 1 million people it's the Ning thing to do. Google Documents I mentioned, but Yahoo Groups, Google Groups, teams on the web solving problems. Case learning at Indiana, we have cases with role play, people taking on actors and actresses' roles of a president, a CFO, an EIO, taking on accountant's role, cost accounting, auditing, whatever. Psychology on the web, Gestalt experiments, Piagetian experiments that your students in psychology can now interact with for free. Open access publications, having articles on the web, podcasts on the web that you can embed in your classes. Reading from open access. I have a syllabus that's 54 pages long and everything is free. If you go to my homepage, you can get my free syllabus on open education. And everything's available as a hot link. I don't want my students to buy a book anymore. I want them to find free stuff if they can. Tracking the life of a scientist like my mentor, Brian J. Ford. Now, Brian's got a current book on the intelligence of a single cell. The Future of Meat is his other book, and Secret Weapons of Nazi Germany. This guy's pretty smart. He was in charge of Mensa in the UK. He was on the BBC and had a chance to interview John Lennon and passed on it. Thought they were a passing fad, and it was the biggest mistake he said he ever made. Now he has 40 years of his life as a biologist up on the web for free for biology classes. Anyone can tap into this at any time. And you can now Twitter or read his Twitter posts. You can read his blog posts. You can email him. He can come into your class for free using the webcams that he has. And he'll do this. You can bring in a scientist after reading about them. You can go to the United Nations World Digital Library and find out about cultures of the world. Click and find out about Asia. Go into the Philippines or go into Korea. Get pictures, videos, text. All free, and this is peer-reviewed. People are asking about quality contents. How about something from the United Nations that has gone through 6 years of peer review? This is no small task. What we need to find are 20 such websites, and then this question about quality will subside. And there are 20 such websites. There are probably 100 such websites. We need to stop focusing on the thousands that are not high quality and start looking at the hundreds that are. And among those is the British Library Turning the Pages. You go to the British Library Turning the Pages, you can turn the Magna Carta scanned in. You can turn Da Vinci's writings and get an audio file explaining what he was doing at the time, his original handwriting of Mozart and Beethoven and Jane Austen and other people around the world, all scanned in. Turning the Pages, British Library. We worry about quality. Take a look at the Encyclopedia of Life. They're indexing 2.7 million species with peer review. Don't go to Wikispecies from Wikipedia, although I like it. People will contest Wikipedia resources. How about the Encyclopedia of Life instead? Tottering. Some of us totter at the edges. We're almost transforming our classes. How many of you are trying blended learning, by the way? How many of you are tottering and almost transforming your class with the web? A few of you are. Front row people, the back row, they're checking their Facebook. This morning, I got this article sent to me. I added it to my class, to my talk here, so you won't find this in my slides. Called Flipping the Classroom. How instructors are flipping the classroom and giving students ownership by having them access their lectures, accessing content on the web, and then flipping and letting students choose. My colleague Ron Ostin at York University flips his classroom. Ron lets his students design his weekly agenda. Ron lets his students design his syllabus with him in a wiki. My students do wiki books with students from Beijing Normal in China, the Open U in Malaysia, Taiwan universities as well. We work together to write books. I've written a few things on this. It's not easy to do. We're tottering. We're almost transforming our classes and giving students control, and we keep adding to the wiki books that's out there. My student Dan here sang a song, and I played it on Tuesday, I think, a little piece of it, or Wednesday. He summarized what he learned in my class through a song with 4 different types of styles of songwriting. My student Shuya did a video summarizing her learning. My student Anjali from India, she created an avatar. She used Animoto to illustrate what she learned in my class. My students do films. They summarize their learning through these films. My students might meet Tian Belawati coming in from Indonesia to talk to them. They might meet George Siemens talking about connectivism from Canada, and they met him last year. They might meet Stephen Downes from the Canadian Research Council with his kitty cat there, who's not satisfied, not content. They might meet all these people. If you haven't met Stephen Downes, he goes to every conference out there and blogs on it, so you don't have to. His blog is called Old Daily. Has anyone in here seen that blog? Some of you have. Interesting guy. You might get this woman here, Yayoi Anji from Tokyo, came into my class to talk about podcasting and wikis to help engineers learn English. Jenny Pennycook from Antarctica, talking about penguins and the loss of many penguins because of global warming. Don Tapscott wrote the book Wikinomics and Grown Up Digital, coming into my class to talk about them, and people coming from Darwin, Australia, all popping in. So we might have bridges to experts around the world. You might have military people getting experts to come into Afghanistan or Iraq or something to help out with the local people there, understand veterinary medicine in this case or something else. Kids in Mexico, working with kids in Wisconsin about agriculture through video conferencing. Kids at the University of Houston. My colleague from the University of Houston, Dr. Mimi Lee, and my students are doing cross-university collaboration. We're writing wikibooks together, critiquing wikibooks in one of our projects. So bring in global video conferencing. You might bring in Ken Carroll from Chinese Pod from Shanghai, a Dubliner and an Irishman in Shanghai. Created Chinese Pod, Spanish Pod, French Pod, Italian Pod. He was talking to my students. IntelliGirl from Second Life, she has a book, Second Life for Dummies. She pops into my class with her flaming red hair, and I put my pink wig on so she's not alone. I bring in David Merrill, the most famous instructional designer in the world. My friend Jax from UW Milwaukee, where are you? So over here, he studied with David Merrill, and he can attest he's the most famous person in the world for instructional design, one of the best teachers ever. My students hated his articles. They thought they were Bonk. They read them, they debated them, they watched a video of him, they critiqued him. Then we brought him in live. They loved everything he had to say. The point is, students will find out one article doesn't represent a person, and people's ideas change over time, and the live person will enhance it. Going from async to sync is a top 10 thing you can do. Async to sync. They love David Merrill. I've done this many times. My students hated Elliot Soloway, who I had up earlier. He talked about how computer programming impacted thinking. We brought him in live. They loved everything he had to say. Agreed with everything. The same people that hated him agreed with everything. Multi-site events. These students at Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg, and William & Mary, the second oldest university to Harvard in the U.S., read my World is Open book, brought me in. You can see I was looking cross-eyed at them, then I looked normal at them. Then I went and visited them, and we had dinner together. After they brought me in through a webcam, I was able to travel and meet them. Podcast productions. My student, Teresa Chen from Taiwan, has her students singing Beatles songs to learn English, her engineering majors. My student, Justin, said, Dr. Bonk, I don't want to just do a blog in your class. Let me do a video blog. Let me work harder. Let me do more work. And I said, fine, you can do more work. And so he did. He did a video blog every week. And this morning he wrote me with a new paper he wrote he wanted me to read. I said, well, I got to run down here. I'll read it after the show here. Uploading mobile books. One of my students put a book up on the web for her final project. She said, Dr. Bonk, I don't want to just do a paper in your class. I want to make it available free to the world as a mobile app. University of Michigan has podcasts for all their classes. They've podcasted every dentistry course. You don't want to just learn through podcasts, but you can learn supplementally from podcasts. My friend Michael Resch from Kansas State University has had 2 videos that went viral. And I went to visit him back in September and interviewed him in my blog, so you can read about that. And this is the classroom where his videos were taking place. Today, in the Chronicle of Higher Education, there's an article that popped up saying Michael Resch has changed his mind. Or last night, and so last night in the pub at the top floor, I wrote him an email, and he wrote back to me. He said, I haven't changed my mind. I'm misquoted in this article. So I've written on that today to all my students. I put this up. He believes the world is open too. So I think we're at a jumping off point. Got a few minutes left. We're at a jumping off point to extreme learning. Could I get everyone to stand with me here? Everyone stand up. All the guys on the count of 3, we're going to jump. All the men. 1, 2, 3, jump. That's pretty good. All the ladies, you can do better. 1, 2, 3, jump. Ladies, let's try this again. 1, 2, 3, jump. And everyone together. 1, 2, 3, jump. Okay, you can have a seat. Melinda told me you're trainable people. We're at a jumping off point. We're not really sure where we're going. This open educational resource, it just arrived 10 years ago in 2001 when MIT announced it. This is new. We now have what I'm calling totally extreme learning. Kids riding bicycles around North America, South America, and blogging on it. We have a guy driving his car from North to South America and blogging on it. We got the Nautilus Live ship. I'll come back to the ship. We got polar bear cams in northern Manitoba, so kids can understand the thinning of the ice. We got Dr. Bonk doing crazy dances. My friend Kamiko says it's extreme learning there. What is extreme learning? I tried to define it in the paper I've got here. Extreme learning is many things. Can involve learning while at boat, at sea, at the North Pole, or when sailing around the world. It also occurs when tracking blog posts and podcasts of someone else. Car adventures, riding bicycles, but also passive things like watching a video in TED or in Link TV. Extreme learning includes people in prisons and in hospitals learning, unemployed people, people just trying to get a new hobby. Others might be transitioning from one career to the next through open ed resources. Some might be in war zones learning, getting their MBA while in a battle situation. So we are looking at these 6 areas as extreme learning, which I've gone through already with you. Adventure learning, virtual education, social change, language ed, shared online video, and portals. We've tried to understand what these 6 things mean, these 6 areas mean, in terms of global education, human development, and societal development. We're trying to wrap our heads around this. This gentleman here in Oslo, in Norway, had the missing link that went as a website last 2 years ago, actually. This missing link article came out, and his book came out the same day. His article came out in the Public Library of Science the same day the book came out, the same day the website went live, the same day Sir David Attenborough explained what this all meant for society. Extreme learning, immediate science. Kids in schools find out the same day that scientists do. Live science. The guy who found the Titanic now has a boat called the Nautilus. They travel around the world and find species and broadcast them live to kids in schools, and kids can ask questions of them. Live science. Field archaeology and blogging. This woman here starts My World is Open book. She's a rugby player at UCLA. She's blogging about her digs in Canada, in Hope, British Columbia, looking at First Nation people. These people are in Albania. Other people are in Peru or Chile, blogging. And I can be in Indiana as an armchair Indiana Jones, and I can be listening to them at any point in time. I can put my Indiana Jones bag on and my hat. I didn't bring my hat with me, but I think Tim gave me this bag, so I got to put it on, he said. So, you know, I can be an armchair Indiana Jones at any point in time and ask her questions about what's happening in her research. I don't have to travel to British Columbia or Chile or Mexico. I don't have to go to Afghanistan. This guy was supposed to go to Afghanistan to do his dissertation, and his wife wouldn't let him. She was worried his head would be chopped off or something. So he stayed home in Latrobe, in Melbourne, Australia, and found 450 sites of interest using Google Earth. He used Google Earth to find waterways and military installations and mosques and other things that were not found by previous archaeologists. As a graduate student, he became one of the most famous archaeologists in the world. Bicycle-based learning on the web. This woman here riding her boat around the world, Jennifer Watson, becoming the youngest solo sailor at age 15 last year, right? And there's a 14-year-old from the Netherlands that beat her, apparently, right? My friends doing Earth Education projects and Polar Husky projects. All this stuff available through adventure learning websites for kids in schools to ask questions of their explorations. Kids are learning on boats. They're getting homeschooled while they go around the world on a boat. They might get French lessons and Italian lessons and math lessons. And ship dock captains can proctor their examinations when they come into port. You might have Adora Swivtak, the world's youngest teacher. At age 6, she started teaching teachers how to teach writing. She's now 14 and ready to retire. She's got 3 books. Flying Fingers is her first book. She writes 110 words a minute. Cassandra Brooks is blogging on her research in Antarctica on the Chilean sea bass or Antarctic toothfish. Kids in the Philippines, I read her blog posts, are asking her questions at age 7, 8, 9, 10 about her researches going on in Antarctica. She has what's called the Ice Stories projects. There's the Ice Stories projects from the Exploratorium in San Francisco. She's now got something called Shark Theater, a 24-foot inflatable screen that she takes to island communities to explain ecology to them. My friend Wendy Ermold is studying the water flow under the ice at the North Pole and getting MIT podcasts in her ears. She's learning all the time. There's no university, but she's learning all the time. We've got South Africa. This woman here is helping kids with HIV/AIDS, parents who were died due to HIV/AIDS, and they have no schools, no teachers, no parents, but they have a lab where they're getting mentored by people around the world. They're getting educated through one person's idea. She got a CNN Hero Award this year. My friend Lucifer Chu translated Lord of the Rings at age 26 and made $1 million. He took half of that money and he's translating MIT content free to the world. He's helping out traditional and simplified Chinese for mainland China as well as Taiwan where he lived. And the OOPS project, the open source, open courseware prototype system. He has the largest group of voluntary translators. Not many of you here have a friend named Lucifer, but I do. I did go to Catholic school. My aunt is a nun. She said, "What are you doing hanging out with Lucifer?" He's a good guy. My first time I gave a talk on The World is Open, he flew from Taiwan to be with me, actually. My friend Ray Schroeder offered a free class last summer on online learning, and 2,700 people signed up to learn about the state of online learning. Global game jams. There are now kids doing competitions globally, creating computer software around the world. Virtual telepresence, where you might have people in 2 different locations where they look like you're in the same room. First Nation people in Sioux Lookout, Canada, have teleported instructors coming to them from Toronto. They don't have running water, they don't have paved roads, but they have teleported instructors. Army personnel getting mobile training online in war zones. Language learning online. 300,000 people a month are downloading Chinese podcasts. Many languages are being taught in LiveMocha, in KenTalk, in Mixer. There's a lot of websites today where we have conversations online. You're learning a language from someone else. You sign up to teach a language to someone else. History online. This woman here put up 50 videos to explain history. Music videos from the 60s, 70s, and 80s as I played on Tuesday and Wednesday. It's called History for Music Lovers. MBAs from war zones I mentioned earlier. People learning from an airport, like some of you will when you go home. Learning from a train, learning from a plane. We're always learning all the time. My friend Paul Kim is in Tanzania this week working with kids who don't even have electricity. My son is with him. He's been in Mexico working with migrant worker kids. They have no schools and no teachers, but they're teachers in your pocket. An MP3 player's in the pocket. They can recharge it on a bicycle when they pedal the bicycle. Okay? He's working with kids who are blind kids in India with Braille readers. He's going around the world doing literacy training, and what he says is, I don't want to just do this, I want to have them tell stories. I have Palestinian kids telling stories with Israeli kids, sharing cultures. And I liked his idea so much, I've been trying to work with his idea a bit. Paul is at Stanford with this Seeds for Empowerment project. If you get a chance, go to the website, look up Seeds for Empowerment. I've been working on something called Extreme Learning and creating the Extreme Learning website where we're having people enter in and tell stories of how their life changed with technology. This gentleman here had his life changed. He wouldn't have been able to pass high school, but online learning helped him pass. Other people are in hospitals, losing arms and legs because of disease. They're learning while they're in the hospital still, keeping up. They're tracked in our stories. This kid here is in Africa, and he's got a little story about how his life changed through technology, MIT courseware. So we've got a system we're designing for uploading your stories, sharing your stories. We're now doing surveys, interviews, and focus groups of how people's lives are changing. We're trying to stretch the edges of humanity. Think about what's possible today in the Extreme Learning Hopes and Dreams projects. HOPE stands for Humanity's Open Platform for the Exchange of Stories, and DREAMS is design-based research for an active and engaging mobile system. So Extreme Learning Hopes and Dreams. I'm happy. I hope some of you are happy today with this talk. Maybe you're frustrated, maybe you're sleeping, I don't know. Again, my notes are posted at trainingshare.com. My paper is at Publication Share. World is Open book. The intro and ending of The World is Open is free at worldisopen.com. So if you don't win the book here, you can get the beginning and ending. You can get all the web resources. You can get all the references. We put everything up. I'm working on a free book. I'm working on a second one I'm going to put up for free. I want to thank everybody for coming this morning.